Welcome back to Nothing But Nets. I am joined again by my NBA expert Nate to address some kind of rumors that I thought were crazy. And I read the article and it kind of made sense to me. Could Jimmy Butler and Ben Simmons reunite in Brooklyn? Uh, Nate's saying no. I wish I could be as confident as Nate. I don't know. I think this thing may have legs to it because I do think they want to land Jimmy. And Jimmy and Ben Simmons, same agent. I think the Nets are kind of looking at this as a 1 year rebuild, and next year they're going to look to be competitive again. They do have the Knicks across town, who are going to be good for the foreseeable future. You would think. First off, is there a lot of pressure on the Nets to try to make this a 1 year rebuild and at least be competitive in 25-26?
There's not pressure to be competitive in 25-26. There is pressure to do this the right way and to turn this into a winning team. So whether that happens overnight in 1 year, so to speak, or whether it takes two draft classes and unfortunately a couple years out of the playoffs, they just kind of have to do it the right way. And like I think I said this last time, that's going to depend on how a lot of the players end up playing this year, and that's the beauty of sports. Like we're gonna find out what Nick Claxton is, what Cam Thomas is, what all the young guys that they traded for. There's a lot of exciting pieces, but as of right now, they're just names on the chalkboard.
I wanted to, Ben Simmons is our highest paid player, right? So it makes sense that you should talk about a team's highest paid player. No team has their highest paid player ignored more than we do, right? Because he's a non-factor. If I said to you, I came up with a number, and I just made this up arbitrarily, 27 and a half games, over or under. Do you think Ben Simmons plays over or under 27 and a half games this year?
Under.
So, I want to say you're wrong, but if I had to bet, if I had to put my own money on it, I would say under two. So how do you even entertain the thought of playing a guy that no one thinks is going to even play 27 games? How do you even enter? He didn't play 27 last year. He played 40 the year before and 0 the year before that. How do you even entertain the idea of bringing a guy like that back?
You just don't. I hope this video gets more engagement than that article. I think it was just clickbait. Like whether he knows a guy or his agent wanted him to put something out there. There's no reason as of right now you invest anything or put any thought into Ben Simmons and the Nets in the same sentence as in their future. He's giving you nothing. He's shown he doesn't want to play. We both just said it. He's probably not gonna play again this year. If he's friends with Jimmy off the court, great. You don't make a pivot and who you're signing or what money is being given to because he's friends with Jimmy Butler at all. And I don't know. I don't remember them being that friendly. I guess they did play together in Philadelphia. Um, but that was the old Ben Simmons, the tough guy who could defend anyone and dunk on everyone, and the ultimate point guard. That was like the next generation's Magic Johnson. That was that Ben Simmons. Like Jimmy hasn't changed much, but Ben has unfortunately turned into a shell of himself.
Honestly, I thought that Ben Simmons was a little overrated defensively. I'm going to get into Ben Simmons. I don't hate Ben Simmons. I think he adds value to anything. I think if he's on the court, which I get it, right? Like that doesn't happen. But if he's on the court, I think he's a good player for any team. And I can get into why, but even that Ben Simmons, all defensive team, all NBA, I thought that Ben Simmons was pretty overrated. I didn't think he had that kind of impact where he's a top, NBA, top 15 player in the league. I never saw that. And defensively, I thought he was overrated. Yeah, he could block shots and he could guard multiple positions, but what he really couldn't guard was quick guards, and they would beat him consistently. And the Nets really gave Philly problems, even though they were outmanned with D'Angelo Russell, Karis LeVert, and it was and Dinwiddie. They had guards that could take it to the hole, and Redick and Simmons really struggled with them in that series. Now, Philly won in 5 games because they were clearly the better team, but their guards, especially LeVert in that series, gave them a ton of issues. So I have always thought, as a one-on-one defender, Ben Simmons was overrated. Like Ben Simmons was not a great a premier all defensive one-on-one defender. Which is real quickly, what are your prime peak Ben Simmons, Philly Ben Simmons? What are your thoughts on that?
And I think you might be knocking him a little bit too much based on one series. He's also like, yeah, if he's not the doesn't have the quickest feet in the league, he's usually not guarding the point guard every night. He might be guarding, a wing or an Anthony Edwards or the best scorer on that team, but he's like, I don't know, you're talking about a small point guard who's probably quicker than him. That small point guard is also probably getting his layup chased down blocked by Ben Simmons, who's trailing right behind him if he does get beat. It's like you've played basketball, even if you beat a guy who's 6'8", you're still looking over your shoulder versus if you beat a guy my height. It's totally different.
I
So
don't have a layup package
um,
like Kyrie or anything like that, though, right? But yeah,
yeah,
if I be,
exactly.
yeah.
That's getting clapped off the backboard. So um, I don't know. I've always thought he was a pretty good defender. And both. I mean, I thought he was a good on ball defender, and I also thought he was a good help side defender. So I was like, he does a lot for you on that side of the ball for sure. And at the time, he was still a threat at the rim and one of the best players in transition in the league. So there were so many aspects to his game along with defense that just you wanted him on the court. Um, if you're a coach.
Which is why I understand why the Nets are intrigued by him, right? Because defense travels, and if you bring your defense with you, you can win on the road, right? Like defense wins in the playoffs. I'm one like if you look at the amount of top 5 defensive teams that win the NBA Finals versus the teams that top 5 offensive teams that win the NBA Finals, top defense 5 defensive teams have it by a wide margin, right? So I understand why they would want him. You have him, you would have Claxton. I think Noah Clowney is going to emerge as a premier defender as well, or a top level defender. And then you got Butler too. I mean that's a formidable unit defensively. Offensively, with spacing, that's going to be a disaster. In theory, if Ben Simmons plays, do you see what the Nets might be thinking if they were to keep Simmons?
He's on the last year of his deal, so you have to hope he just wants to play basketball. That's the biggest difference. Outside of like the coaching will figure out where he's going to be on the court, but you need Ben Simmons that's motivated and confident on the court and not, like I said, a shell of himself and hesitant on both ends of the floor. And like at any time I've seen him in a Nets jersey, he's closer to that guy than he is the old Philadelphia Ben Simmons. So basketball wise, I'll let them figure it out, but you just need a confident, motivated Ben Simmons. That's the biggest difference. If you don't have that, then there's no point. There's no point of him being out there at all, really.
I wanted to ask you about offensively. Ben Simmons is a great up-tempo player, right? He's great on the break. He's great on the run. In the half-court set, he's not really useful. Would a guy like him and Jimmy Butler, I know they played together briefly, but I mean, in today's NBA, would that make sense for you? Especially when you consider you're also going to have Claxton and Cam Thomas, who are both, Cam Thomas is a half-court player. He's a mid-range player. And Nick Claxton can't score from more than 5 feet from the basket. Would having Simmons and Butler on that team just really, really be out of place and a slowed down, stuck offense?
I mean, you make a good point. It would be pretty redundant. You would have a very 1990s hardwood classics throwback look to where your guys are all, standing 15 to 18 feet from the basket. That's where Jimmy likes to operate. You said that's where Cam likes to operate. Obviously, Ben is probably even closer than that, where he's scoring and shooting most of his shots in the half court. And then yeah, same with Claxton, who's unless he gets that Hardenstein push shots, almost all of his shots are at the rim. So that's 4 of your starters who just wouldn't be able to stretch the floor at all. That's again, I'm not dictating my future around Jimmy Butler and his relationship with Ben Simmons or him wanting to get an extension, whatever the case may be. I think the quote in the article we're talking about said part of it is New York, part of it is that Bernie Lee, who is Ben Simmons' agent, isn't very happy with how his client has been dealt with by the Nets. But, it's a two-way relationship. I don't think the Nets are happy with their end of the bargain whatsoever at all. They really are not happy with what they got from the Nets. So I don't for them as of right now, the relationship is going to spoil unless, like I said, Ben comes in motivated and inspired and wants to play basketball and is confident doing it on the court again.
Ben's playing 5-on-5. They said he's clear. They said his medical condition is advanced. I don't even understand what his medical condition is at this point. It's just like half of me just wants to send him home and just be done with the contract, but they're not going to do that. Well, first, what are your thoughts on that? Kind of like the Knicks did with Marbury. I know Marbury was an off the court issue, but it's just say Ben Simmons, just take your money, just go home. Don't even bother showing up. It was kind of you won't be able to trade him, but I don't think you're going to be able to trade him anyway. Even if he plays, I don't think you're going to be able to trade him. So what are your thoughts on the Nets just saying, Ben Simmons, just go home. Just don't
Well,
thank you,
to
but no
tie it
thank you.
to tie it into one of your earlier questions, I think it's more likely that he does that and is been sent home by the Nets or vice versa, whatever he decides to go home, than him playing 26 and a half games this year for the Nets, which kind of says enough about where he is as a player and his standing with the team.
Yeah, I intentionally set that 27 and a half number low. It's low. Like 27 and a half games, you
Yeah.
missed almost the whole season. And we're still going under, right?
To
Like
me,
that's
it's like it's the same difference whether you said 27 and a half or half a game.
is it, and I'm asking for pure speculation here, because I've gotten into arguments with Net fans on this. Is it a physical injury or is it just all mental block right now from Ben Simmons? Do you think he's capable of playing physically or no?
Who cares? I mean, I don't know. It's probably, can I say both? Like, he probably doesn't care enough mentally to be in shape physically. So if once he does have an injury, it's almost like, all right, I'm not like, does he even care about being motivated to get back on the court? Or is he just lollygagging in rehab and yeah, my back still hurts. See you next year, Brooklyn. Like it seems like he's closer to that guy. It seems like he's both mentally checked out that when there is a physical something that, obviously has happened a lot with this guy, he's a lot more motivated to sit out and collect checks than actually find a way to get back on the court as most athletes and competitors would want to do. Seems like he's lost that competitive edge.
In the next CBA that they have, they're going to have to figure out some way to deal with this because what he's done the last 3 years, and we'll see what happens this year, is insane. Like it's a crime in Italy. Like it's ridiculous what he's done, and he's gotten paid every year $40 million to not play basketball. First, like I don't even understand that as a man, as a competitor. This is your gift. This is, I would imagine, your passion, right? This is what you spent your years doing, and now you're at the highest level, and now you don't want to compete. I don't fully understand that. I understand you're rich for life, regardless, but don't like he was on good teams, the Nets, the Sixers, teams that could compete for a title. Don't you want to don't you want to win a championship? Don't you want to show that my best is better than your best?
You know what? This is probably a whole other podcast, but like
Probably.
the new the new generation is kind of, these guys are on their AAU teams and they'll tell each other how much they score, how much they average, or where they rank in the country versus what
The
team
record.
they're on that's undefeated. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like LeBron was on this famous team when it was a big undefeated team against, Carmelo's team. And that was a big game. Now it's about no one knows where these guys play or how many wins Cooper Flag had. It's just a hype train. It's just follow me and I got a millions of followers and I'm this, I'm selling my brand and like yeah, that's a whole I mean, maybe he's found a glitch, bro. Look at Ben Simmons. He's basically living the Andrew Luck dream of getting to retire while collecting money and and living in New York. He's found the glitch. He's making all the money. He doesn't have to pay. He's living the dream. I'm sure lots of athletes, believe it or not, want to do. Like those 14, 15 guys on the bench, they're there to make a living and be gone. And he's unfortunately just one of the star players that wants to do it, which sucks for Nets fans.
The thing about Andrew Luck, though, it was clear, it was obvious from the beginning that he didn't really want to play football. It was just this was a means to an end. I remember when he went to Stanford. Andrew Luck, I'm from Texas, is one of the greatest high school quarterbacks to ever come out of Texas. Like if you put him Mount Rushmore, he'd be on the list. Like that's how good Andrew Luck was in high school. And they asked him where he was going to when he decided to go to Stanford. They asked him why Stanford. He said he wanted to be an architect. Engineer, I think. So either an architect or an engineer. I forget which
Right.
one or the other. And like you,
Knew
you want
something
the
was up.
most, yeah, you don't want to be in the NFL. You want to be a quarterback, and like he didn't want to play football. It was a way to get rich so he could do what he wants in life, and he did that. And God bless him. Do what you want. Get out with your brain intact. That's fine. But he was like, I thought, a special case, right? Like, all right, he doesn't really like football. He's just incredibly gifted at it. Ben Simmons, though, like, I don't know. Like, you've gotten this far. Don't you want to win? I guess not. I guess it's not that important to these guys. Like, don't you want to be the best? Ben Simmons made all NBA teams. He played in a game 7 in the NBA playoffs multiple
Listen,
times. Like,
my one screenshot of Ben Simmons last year was him at the Met Gala when I saw him there. That was the one time I saw him in person. And I've been to Nets games last year, but I was present at the Met Gala and I saw him there on the red carpet. I was like, oh, that's that Nets player that has been here for 2 years and never suits up. And I think the Nets were I don't know if they had a game that night or like that, but it was just like, oh, I forgot he was on the team. Like, I forgot they're paying him to be at the Met Gala.
To play dress up at the at the Met Gala.
Most guys would be ashamed. Yeah, most guys, I mean, if you're hurt and your team is playing and battling for a playoff spot or what, like, you're not at the Met Gala. But we're in a different time. But I hope he's an outlier. I hope this doesn't start a trend, like you said, and they have to make serious changes in the CBA. But at the same time, I'm glad this turned into a Ben Simmons retirement conversation and Andrew Luck conversation because I think this article is total BS, and there's no way Jimmy Butler has any control over the Nets giving Ben Simmons any money whatsoever. They've given him enough. He's.
Let me ask you this. Let's say Ben Simmons hits that number 27. 27 games he plays this year. And he plays okay in those 27 minutes. And Jimmy Butler says, I'll sign here, but I want my boy Ben Simmons on a veteran minimum. You need to fill out the roster. Ben Simmons, I think, is a good player when he plays. We can debate that. I don't know how you feel on that.
Vet minimum is changes everything, but he's probably then still probably going to be at the Met Gala on the vet minimum. But sure, if it gets Jimmy on the roster, but I'm not paying him any money, so the vet minimum changes everything.
When Jason Kidd was deciding between between New Jersey at that time and San Antonio, he said he wanted to play with Mourning. So the Nets had to sign Alonzo Mourning with the missing kidney, if you remember. Like, and that was part of the deal.
I remember Alonzo Mourning on the Nets as a kid, but I did not know that was the reason.
Kid, yeah, said if it wanted me to come back, they had to sign Alonzo Mourning. And that's when he got into the fight with Kenyon Martin, and Kenyon Martin was like, my kidney. He had questioned Kenyon Martin had a back injury or something. And
that's two loud personalities on the same team.
Morning was like, half of y'all are walking around here complaining about bullshit injuries, saying my back. And Kenyon was like, don't talk about me. You hear my kidney. When
I was a 10-year-old kid on my birthday at Benihana, I met Kenyon Martin at Benihana in Midtown on like 53rd Street. And he was playing for the Nets back then. It was a very exciting moment in my Nets fandom as a kid.
I met him at the Errol Spence Mikey Garcia fight at AT&T Stadium, and Errol Spence Mikey Garcia. Yeah, and it wasn't a pleasurable experience either. By the way, I won't get into that, but he wouldn't. He came up to what. I'll tell a story real quick. Right, so I'm sitting in press row, and he's sitting.
It was not going to ruin your chance of getting him on the podcast as a guest, right?
I wouldn't have him on the podcast as a guest. No, I'm kidding. He was in the VIP section. We both had access to the bar and lounge area at Cowboy Stadium. So I'm like on my phone, and I literally, walk into him. Like I walk into him, and I look up, 6'9" guy with neck tattoos. I'm like, that's Kenyon Martin, right? And I got my credential on, and he goes, hey, you with the media? I was like, yeah. And he starts asking me about the fight. I'm just breaking down the fight. Like, Spence is a naturally bigger, stronger guy. He's also the better beer boxer. So if it comes to jabbing content, just break for 2 minutes of my time, just breaking down the fight for him. And I go, hey, Kmart, that team with you and Kidd and Kittles, and that's my favorite team of all time. Can I get a selfie with you real quick? He looks at me and goes, nah, and walks off.
Keep it pushing.
Like, I didn't chase you down like a crazy fan. I didn't come up to you like, I said, can I get a selfie? It's like checking your watch. Like, it takes 2 seconds. Like, nah, and walked away. Really?
Sorry, bud.
Whatever. Can't come on nothing but Nets. I promise you that.
I'll let him know if I see him again at Benihana.
You let him know. He's not welcomed here. unless he wants to apologize publicly.
If he asks, I'll tell him, nah.
Nah.
Yeah.
No, I'll never forget that because like I thought he was joking at first because like who says no to that? Like I gave you like 2 minutes of my time to talk to the because he's a casual
I
boxing
mean,
fan,
once
right?
once
So
the story started with you said if he asked that you were from the media and you said yes, I knew something bad was gonna happen.
but he asked me about the fight,
No,
right?
I
It's
know,
like
but once he might hold something against media people who are media credentialed in general, based on his career and
that's
reporters and
true.
whatnot. Where it's like, oh, this guy's media. All right, I'll ask him about the fight, but f him.
I know he doesn't like Mark Cuban either. I know that.
Noted. Doesn't like Mark
He-
Cuban. Doesn't like media.
yeah, apparently. It's all good. So back to Simmons, right? So in a situation, can you see any team besides the Nets offering him more than anything other than a mid-level, a veteran minimum after this season? Like, do you see any situation in which that could be the case?
Yeah, like a team like Portland will give him 2 mil for because they need to sell some tickets and it's Ben Simmons and people know Ben Simmons, but not a serious contract, not double digit millions a year kind of thing like the old Ben Simmons like we would expect him to make if he was on the market. But yeah, he might just go for a change of scenery and like I said, a team that needs a name. Not that he's a name, but again, how many 8-year-olds can name a player on Portland right now?
Yeah, not many, not many, not too many people in Portland probably either.
Yeah, exactly.
I still think if Simmons is on the court, whenever a little bit on the court, he still offers you a lot. I understand he's not defensively the same player he was with Philly. I understand he's not a threat out the hole anymore, but just his pure size and his vision, and he can still run the court. Opens things up. It creates defensive mismatches. It helps you defensively. Like you can go small with all smalls and still have a big in there who can play on the dunker spot, right? He just offers you, he can play a point center role. He can play a pure point guard, right? Like, I still think he offers you, whoever your best player is, 1 through 5, he can kind of guard them. He offers you a lot.
He,
And
he does, but he has to do it at a high level. If he's the Ben Simmons we saw in a Nets jersey, he doesn't offer you a lot. Like I know what you're saying because he's a big guy that can defend a lot, but he just like was so passive as a player that he almost gave you nothing offensively. Where there were nights where I mean, obviously he was the king of 5, 5, and 5 on the Nets when he did show up. Like if he had a great game, he was like 5 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and you're like, wow, Ben, like that's like a triple double. Like that's the best we're gonna get out of you. So, but unless he almost like had that, like you knew within the first quarter if it was happening, because
yeah,
if there was nothing on the first like in his first 4 to 6 minutes out there, he might not be out there the whole second half at all. So it's kind of like, is he going to give you 5, 5, and 5 with some defense, or is he not going to be? It's just again, I go back to that. He needs to find his confidence and like passion to play again. Otherwise, he'll be there on the court. He'll be there, but that's just about it.
I want to run this by you too. Like I said, I feel that there's more pressure on Marks to rebuild quickly than you do. Like, especially with the Knicks being good, I think this is expected to be a quick rebuild. Um, we'll see how they move this next offseason. But hypothetical lineup of a team that's um, Ben Simmons, Cam Thomas, Jimmy Butler, and then let's say Cooper or Ace at the 4, and then Claxton at the 5. Is that a competitive team? Is it a 45-win team?
You would need a lot of perimeter shooting off the bench.
You have no. I
There's
mean, that's the obvious.
there's
Yeah,
nothing there. Yeah, there's nothing there for you. You'd have to be like the 80s Pistons and just beat people up with that team and just like they'd have to be one of the premier defensive teams in the league. It puts so much pressure on your offense and on those
to
guys like
score
Jimmy Butler it's
at
just it's
all.
not easy to do.
But you do have Jimmy and Cam who can create their own shot in any circumstance against any defense and score, right? Like we've seen Jimmy Butler score in the playoffs against the best defenses in the world, right? We've seen him do it. I get it. It's like I said, it's an antiquated offense. There's nothing in the NBA that we can even compare that to in 2023 or 2024, whatever it is, right? Like, there's nothing similar to that. I can't see it working, but like,
No, you can't. You need guys in the NBA that can knock down the corner three on your court at all times. Like you pretty much need at least two that can knock down the corner three like very
I
very
mean,
effectively. And that
Cam can shoot the
lineup doesn't
corner
have it.
three, but is that what you want to do with Cam? Do you want to make him a catch and shoot guy? I mean, it seems like a waste of his talent,
No, but
right?
when Cam has the ball, there needs to be two guys in the corner that can make threes, and there's
Yeah.
just there needs to be spacing on an NBA floor, and that's not going to happen. That
Clowney
lineup.
would hopefully be one of them. Hopefully, Clowney becomes a reliable corner three shooter by that time. Like, hopefully, there's an improvement and then another improvement the year after. That would be one. But even at that, you still only have one. Like you said, you need two, and they definitely wouldn't have the second.
Yeah, no, Clowney right now is still not that guy too. He's not he's a guy that can knock down a three. He's not a volume 3-point shooter that, I have to stay home on on the whole. If you've got Anthony Edwards driving down the lane line, are you going to help off Clowney if you're guarding him in the corner?
Not at this
Probably.
point, but the hope is that look, the corner three is like the one shot. If you don't have, you can develop it, right? Like you can become a better corner three shooter. We saw. Remember
I know,
Tyler.
yeah, you can, but there's possessions where that happens all the time, and when it's like even this is the shit on Cam Johnson podcast at times, but when Cam is in the corner, like
No,
you
you
can't
gotta
leave
defend
him
it.
there
Yeah,
because he's gonna knock it down. Yeah, it's like
45% clip in the
that's
corner
not
three.
Clowney. If
Yeah.
someone's coming downhill down that lane line, you need to make that decision whether you're going to protect the rim or you're going to not give up a wide open three. So as of right now, it's giving up the wide open three to Clowney every time if there's an elite guy coming downhill on the lane line.
So you helps. I did a panel yesterday, or 2 days ago, and I was the only one that was kind of open to the idea of bringing Jimmy Butler in. And I was initially against it until we talked, and you kind of sold me on the idea. I'm not all in on it like I am Brandon Ingram,
Mhm.
but I'm open to the idea of Jimmy Butler playing here next year. The odds makers, the gambling books all have the Nets as the favorite to land him.
Hmm.
Do you think that there's a better than 50-50 chance that he plays for the Nets next year?
I'll say no, just based on the fact that so much changes throughout an NBA season, throughout an NBA offseason. Like if we look at whoever moves teams every year and 12 months before that, I'm sure the odds were not the same. Whether it's even with our team with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, 12 months before they came, I'm pretty sure the Knicks were the favorites to land those, or at least Kevin Durant. It's just things change so much during an NBA season. So if it's 50-50 right now, I'll just go with the odds. That's go with no.
When Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant had moved all of his offices and his business to New York City, so everyone thought he was going. I didn't think he was coming to the Nets. Everyone's like, "We're gonna get KD and Kyrie." Like, that doesn't happen to us. He's going to the Knicks, and then we got him. I don't know. Does he want to close out his career in New York? If he does, there's obviously, I don't know what his aspirations are for after basketball, but if he wants to be in the media, I don't know. This is obviously the place to do that. And I'm not saying I definitely want Jimmy Butler here next year, but I think I'm open to it. And I think there's a real possibility that he could close out his career here. A, because the Nets can pay him. I don't know who else is going to have that cap space next year. And B, it's going to open up avenues for him post-playing career.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not gonna say it's not gonna happen. I'm the one who likes the idea, but if I had to flip a coin, I'll say no as of right now.
If he does come here, I know you're saying he doesn't, which is fine, but there's a chance that he is. Does Ben Simmons come with him?
I'll say no as of right now.
I'm going to say yes to both of them. I think if Jimmy Butler is here, I think Ben Simmons. And like if we would have had this conversation a week ago, I would say there's no chance Ben Simmons is back, right? There's been talk like bring Simmons back on a veteran minimum. And I don't want to bring him back, but like if Jimmy and him were tight, and I don't know if that's
At this point,
overstated.
if you ask me if next year, do you think Ben Simmons is in the NBA? I think it's 50-50.
I'd say it's better than maybe. I don't. I can see him not being in the NBA next year for sure.
Like, but he could also be one of those guys that takes a mega deal. Like if he's NBA veteran minimum, and the Shanghai Sharks are offering him, 15 mil to go be this Stephon Marbury over there, and then
Yeah.
he could just be a celebrity and just score 80 on like Chingming Wang. It'd be amazing.
Do you think he can score 80 in the CBA, in the Chinese Basketball Association?
Yeah, why not?
Because he has no offensive game. How's he going to score those points?
I mean, Jimmy Fredette scores like I think he scored 100 like multiple times. I'm probably being facetious, but like you and I can get 20 there.
I guess. I mean, I have more offensive game. I'm kidding. Uh, but that's it. I saw this. I thought it was ridiculous, but I'm reading this article, and I'll link it in the description. Like Jimmy Butler and Ben Simmons reuniting in Brooklyn. I don't know. I do think there's a better than 50-50 chance. Like if I would have, I would say I'm 60% sure he'll be here. I'm still thinking, there's a good chance he won't be, but I'm starting to think it's more likely than not that Jimmy is going to be. And again,
I'll say this about the article. This is a much longer episode than the article was in text. It was a very short article. I don't know if there was a lot to that. It had one brief brief quote about an agent being unhappy with how he's treated from the Nets, but there wasn't a lot of context or evidence to go along with the claims, it seemed like.
You could be right about that. I saw that, and it got my wheel spinning a little bit.
For sure.
Again, I had prior to that, I was like, "There's no way you bring him
2018.
Back.
That's a great team. I mean, we're halfway to the Philly team that was in the Eastern Conference Finals, but
You got
it's 2024, and a lot has changed, unfortunately.
Well, no, they only got to the second round. They lost. That was the second round.
That was the second. It wasn't the Eastern.
Yeah, Toronto beat Milwaukee in the conference finals.
Right.
Milwaukee went up 2-0 and then lost 4 in a row. That was the year that Milwaukee was crazy record, supposed to win the championship, and then Toronto picked them off. Or they were supposed to, it was Golden State. They were supposed to be them in Golden State, and they were potentially could beat Golden State, and then Toronto knocked them off, and then Kawhi Leonard did what he did. But I appreciate you joining me, Nate. Hopefully Ben Simmons is not on this team next year, although I think there's a chance that he is. Till next time. I appreciate you. Appreciate you jumping on again, Nate.
I appreciate you having me. Until next time.
All right,
Go
Nate.
Nets.
Go Nets.